Hello, my friends. This is Brother David with you again today. We're out on a beautiful Sunday morning, very beautiful Sunday morning. We're in the mountains of South Carolina this morning. Beautiful mountains, as you can see. I mean, we've got some real scenic views for you to take a look at this morning. And you can see the road down below and the mountains out beyond and the sky out beyond. You can just really catch quite a glimpse from this point of view right here. And we're glad that you have tuned us in this morning, and we hope it'll be a blessing to you. And we're at a wonderful place up here Sunday morning. Yes, we're not in church because church is closed today, so we're out and with the Bible, and hoping that you'll get a blessing from what the Bible has to say today. And as you would join with us, we'll pick up in the book of Romans. As you know, we're going through the book of Romans verse by verse, and we hope to go actually through the whole Bible that way. And I left off last time in verse 28, and we're talking here about some real serious things about mankind that the Bible brings out. Verse 28, and even as they did not like to retain God in their knowledge, God gave them over to a reprobate mind to do those things which are not convenient. Now, we've just already read a whole list of sins right here, which are pretty bad. Some real bad sins, the sin of sodomy and others as well. But they've reached a point. These people, this man or these people have reached a point where God has literally just turned them over to a reprobate mind to do those things which are not convenient. They have gotten so deep in their sin that God has just said, okay, we'll just let you go right on in that. He's turned them over. So much their own mind and their own conscience does not bother them. And they go deeper and deeper and deeper into sin. And we've seen this in our day and time. We have seen the fulfillment surely of this kind of a thing right here. No knowledge of God, no care for that which is right or wrong. Every man is his own law unto himself. Well, as we look at this, we see why they do this. But right here in the next 3 or 4 verses, we find some of the real distinctives of a man or woman who has been turned over to a reprobate mind. As we think about this, look in verse number 29. The Bible says, being filled with all unrighteousness. Note that word filled. Filled with it. I mean, they just a cesspool running over is what is described right here. Being filled with all unrighteousness. Nothing good, nothing right. Just all dirty, all unrighteous. Then he goes on, he gives some more detail to what's being talked about here. Another word is fornication, sexual sins. Not only they became homosexuals, but then the word fornication is used. Well, they don't care if they're married. They don't care what they do. If it feels good, they want to do it. Wickedness, just unclean, bad, wrong against God. Covetousness, they desire that which someone else has. Let's keep looking. This is a bad list. Mischieviousness, they have the intent to hurt. They want to hurt others. And then the Bible says full of envy. They're always jealous. They want to be what someone else is or what someone else has. Let's look on. This is a bad list here. Murder. That's another terrible thing. And murder is never right before God. And once you've murdered somebody, you can never make that right because you can't bring that person back. Let's look on. Debate. They want to argue. I don't care what you say, they've got something else contrary to say about it. And then deceit. That you know what that is. Deceit. They want you to think something besides what they really are, or they want you to think different than what the truth is about who knows what matter. Let's look on. Malignity. And that is that which causes death or will lead to death. You hear that word used a lot concerning cancer. They'll say it's malignant cancer is what it is. And so they in other words, if it's spreading, it will cause death if you don't deal with it. And that's the way that this people are. Then whisperers, and note that the word whisperers is just right next before the word backbiters. And usually that goes together. Whisperers, saying things that really ought not be said, trying to pretend no one else knows. Backbiting, speaking to someone behind their back. Haters of God. That would be a bad commentary for any person to be, would be a hater of God. Why would a man want to hate God? But you know, sad to say, there are people that hate God. And I'm not one of them. Oh no, I do love God, and I'm not ashamed of the gospel, as Paul said. And then look at the next word right here. Uh, Haters of God, despiteful. Well, they can't stand anything, especially those that are good. And then the Bible uses the word proud, and note the word right next to proud is boasters. Pride is never a good thing for anybody to have. Boasters, they want to boast and brag about what they've done, what they are. You see, he's got his eyes on the wrong place, man does. And he's got his eyes on himself. And then we read here, they're inventors of evil things. That can cover a whole list of things, contraptions and devices and all whatnots. And then you look at the next word right here, disobedient to parents. Oh, I tell you, this list is just catching just about everybody in it, is it not? It's just finding us all much lacking. And so if you look at this, disobedient to parents. And you know what? Children should obey their parents. And parents who do not make their children mind, they're not too much of a parent. Don't blame the child, you just blame the parent. You see disobedient children, well, they've got parents that allow them to be that way. The Lord blessed us with 6 wonderful children, actually 7. And you know what? Truthfully, we never had any serious troubles with any of them. They were good children, but you know what? We did not allow them to be bad children. And so if you're a parent coming along the journey, you just take that and go to work with it and raise your children, raise them up for the Lord, raise them up to obey you. How can they obey a God whom they've not seen if they're not taught to obey their Father whom they do see? You should teach them to obey. And then let's read on here. Without understanding. In other words, they can't reason, they can't think. And we see that on some of the news shows today. They have people there, they're without reason, without understanding. They can't make sense of anything because their mind is not sensible. They have a reprobate mind. And then the Bible goes on to say that they're without natural affection. That's something they've just laid aside. They have long since forgot about being affectionate. And then another thing I noticed here, the word implacable. They cannot be pleased. Nothing you can do can make them happy or make them satisfied. No matter what you do, they want more. Wow, this is bad. And then unmerciful. They do not show mercy. They want mercy themselves, but they don't show mercy to anyone else. Look on at this, verse 32, who knowing the judgment of God, that they which commit such things are worthy of death. Not only do the same, but have pleasure in them that do them. Wow. I tell you what, the Bible right here speaks very straight. They said they know the judgment of God, and they which do such things are worthy of death. Well, there is. The Bible certainly teaches capital punishment. It certainly does. And we still practice that in some states, and I say well and good. Well and good. Let it be done. Let it be so, if need be. But here, we're not just talking about a hanging or a court-martial where someone is shot. We're not talking necessarily about the electric chair or the gas chamber, but right here, the death that's spoken of here, I think is referring to the second death that will come upon all who do not know Jesus Christ. They're worthy of death. So they not only do the same, but have pleasure in them that do them. What about that? They're not happy until they're among that crowd who's doing that. I think now we have pleasure in this. You know, after reading these verses from verse 21 down through 32, you kind of feel, and we've talked about them quite a bit, more than I enjoy talking about them. But you know, you feel like you've just opened up a cesspool, a septic tank of human debris, and you've looked into it as you examine these things, and you bring them across your mind. Not pleasant things to really bring across the mind. but you feel like you've just actually looked way down into a real sewer, a real gutter. And you know who's being talked about here in this chapter? It's not them, it is us. It is mankind in whole that's generally being spoken about. This is mankind. This is what he is. This is what he is. And I know some will say, well, we're not that bad. You know what? We're going to look on here in chapter 2, and we're going to find out that, everybody is that bad. And I know people say, no, so-and-so, they're good. They ain't got a bad thought in them. Well, I don't believe that. And I know, but we're all a part of Adam's fallen race. We may not, some of us, we haven't committed some of these things, and I haven't. I haven't done some of these things. By the good grace of God, I have not done some of them. But in spite of the fact that we haven't done them all, we've been guilty of some of them. I mean, when you get to reading across whispering and backbiters and covetousness and envy and stuff like that, pride, being boastful. Well, who could claim to be righteous? Who could claim to be without fault? Who could claim to be without sin? As we look on into chapter 2 in just a moment, we're going to find that, yes, we're all guilty. When we get over in chapter 3, we're going to find the conclusion of the whole matter. For all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. There is none righteous, no, not one. As the psalmist said back in the psalmist, he said, he talked about God looking down to see if there are any that were good and any that did good. And he said, you know what? He found none. In Noah's day, God only found Noah. And the Bible said that Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. Yes, this chapter right here condemns just about the whole world. When we get through of chapter 2, the rest of us are definitely going to be condemned, if you've got any doubt left in your mind, that all are guilty and that all men have sinned against God. I know this is sounding pretty bad, and it is bad. Man is a fallen creature, and he doesn't have a spark of goodness in him. You've probably heard the term totally depraved. That's the way man is apart from God. And don't think that man's got a little spark of good in him. If you fan that spark, that he'll do good. No, it takes something more than that. It takes a new birth that Jesus talked about, and a new spirit coming into our body, into our soul. And we'll get into that as we proceed through this chapter of this book of Romans. It sounds bad. It sounds bad, and it is bad. It is bad. But you know what? We're going to find the remedy for it. You stay with me, and we'll look at the remedy for all that we've read about here. So how could a man who's done all these things, is there any hope for him? Yes, there certainly is hope for him. And the Bible tells us that, yes, there is hope. Even those that have pleasure and those things that they do, oh yeah, I think so. And we just read about the term a reprobate mind. He's just doesn't even want to think about God. God has given him over. Well, I think there's hope for people that have that, and people who are that far into sin. I've heard some great testimonies of people who have gone deep into sin, but yet God's grace has lifted them up. As we close out our little lesson today, we've covered a few verses. I'd like to give each of you and anyone who's listening just a real opportunity to think about your soul and Jesus Christ and about getting right with God. It's Sunday morning, and some of you may not be in church. I hope you all are, but if you're not, why not consider asking Jesus Christ into your heart today, into your life, and to believe upon him. The Lord said, he that cometh unto me, he'll in no wise cast him out. Like I've said before, you may be guilty of all these things that we have read and studied about this morning. And you may find your name written there with some of the rest of our names who have sinned and come short of God's glory. You know what? No need to die and go to a devil's hell to add to this. You don't want to do that. Believe upon Jesus Christ. Ask him to come into your heart as your Lord and your Savior. And you'll find he'll make a new creature of you in Christ Jesus. Be the greatest thing you've ever done. May God bless you. Thank you.